I'm an ER nurse and I treated a patient who thought he could fly, and this is that story. This one day I was working in one of the busiest emergency rooms in downtown LA, running around treating my patients when we had a young boy rushed in from a nearby university, and he was admitted for a traumatic brain injury. He had finished his first year of medical school and he was throwing a party. The first year of medical school is definitely one of the hardest, so it was just natural for him to celebrate his achievement. He had drank alcohol and he took 2 100 milligram pills of MDMA, which is also known as ecstasy. Mixing the alcohol with the ecstasy can heighten the effect of the ecstasy and also increase the time of effect. In the ER, we do see a lot of patients abuse ecstasy and other hallucinogenics. I think a lot of nurses and doctors, because they see the effects of it, they don't try it. They don't go near it. Ecstasy can sometimes make you believe that you see or hear things that are not actually there, and he believed that he could fly. So without hesitation, he jumped off the 7th floor balcony. So his friends thought he was joking initially. When they found out he was being serious and he had actually taken the ecstasy and alcohol together, it was too late to stop him from falling. Luckily, he broke his fall by hitting a tree while he was coming down. If that tree wasn't there, he could have instantly died. The tree reduced the force of which his head hit the concrete. He was unconscious and he had obvious signs of traumatic brain injury, irregular breathing. There's clear fluid that comes out of the nose and ears, which is cerebrospinal fluid. Also, he had a lot of pressure built up in his brain. It can cause permanent brain damage if it's not treated promptly. It can cause seizures, strokes, and even sometimes death. In the ER, everyone has to act really fast, especially when we get a trauma case. Everyone has to be on top of him. Maybe several nurses come to one patient, putting in IVs. One nurse is putting in an IV, one nurse is securing the airway, making sure the patient's breathing. Everything happens pretty fast in the ER. It's almost just like you see in the Hollywood movies. The family of our patient is also our patient. Obviously, this was a younger patient, so his parents were traumatized, especially his mother, who had heard what happened. And thankfully they were in LA at the time, and she came in and she was just crying hysterically. And I was the first person who saw her, and I held her hand and told her that, we were taking care of the situation. We were doing as much as we can. All the nurses and the doctors were doing as much as they can to stabilize her son, her only son, and hopefully save his life. Well, usually when a coma is induced, it's because the brain is working so hard to take care of the trauma. So when that happens, the brain starts to swell up and it's pushing on the skull and it can cause permanent damage. So in order to stop the brain from working so much, a doctor will go in and use medication to induce coma. Sometimes when patients come off a coma, not only are they affected by the initial trauma to the brain, but they're affected by the coma and the medications that they were given. Some patients get out of a coma and they stay in a vegetative state, or VS is what we call it, or sometimes in a minimally conscious state where they can respond to stimuli, but they're not doing anything else. So the patient was in an induced coma for 2 weeks. Finally and thankfully, his pressure in the brain decreased and his vital signs returned to normal. So to my surprise, when the patient awoke, he didn't have any changes in his personality, his mood. He didn't lose any memory. He was very lucky. So all the doctors and nurses worked really hard to get him to where he was at the end of his day. He did come back several months later to thank all the nurses that were still working there, all the doctors, which was nice. He brought a box of donuts. He was young and he had a near-death experience, which I'm sure changed his life forever, and the way he looks at life and the way he treats his patient, because he's going to be a doctor one day. Especially as a trauma nurse, I do take pride in taking care of every patient, even if they just come in for having a bad trip on ecstasy. You know, just even if it's a psychological help, because we do that a lot in the ER, is psychologically help patients get better. It's still taking me time to kind of shut off my brain after I go home from the ER or the ICU and not think about the things that I saw that day. Sometimes just going home and talking to my sister about it, who's also a healthcare professional, or talking to a friend or anything, and just kind of letting it go. And you just let it go. It's just hard.